would be missing a chapter if the story of Fran Tarkenton was not included. Tarkenton played in more games than any quarterback in history, and when he retired in 1978, he had broken every meaningful record available to a passer. But his passing wasn't really the quality that made him special. He was the man who seeded the word scramble into the vocabulary of pro football. He once said, "I never thought a quarterback should be a statue." Well, ironically, he has become one. His bronze bust is mounted on a pedestal in the Hall of Fame. Instead of a pedestal, though, they should have put it on rollers. That would have been more authentic. And every night they'd come in and find Deacon Jones and Merlin Olsen looking around to see where it went.
It seemed that Fran Tarkenton was always going uphill to reach his destination. His journey began in 1961, when as a quarterback for the newly formed Minnesota Vikings, Tarkenton gave new meaning to the term advancing the football. In an era when football purists believed solely in the drop-back, stand-up quarterback, Tarkenton and his scrambling became an object of scorn and ridicule. Without size, a strong arm, or a solid offensive line, Tarkenton achieved success with a pair of quick feet and a strong sense of resourcefulness.
My high school coach instilled in me the fundamentals of playing, but also to never give up on a play. If I went back in the pocket to throw a pass and the protection broke down, he encouraged me to make something happen. I was always distressed when I saw quarterbacks, when their protection broke down, just to give up and fold themselves in the pocket and accept a 7 or 8 yard loss and go to the next play. And if you didn't get protection, they would lose. And I just made up my mind when I got up to pro football that I was not going to give up on a play ever. That if the pocket broke down, if the protection broke down, I was going to run, scramble, do whatever I had to do to make something out of the play.
Since Tarkenton was one captain who had no intentions of going down with the ship, every Viking pass play ultimately turned into a lifeboat drill. Viking linemen didn't mind the overtime work necessary to protect Tarkenton because their efforts often paid off. Defensive players, on the other hand, didn't appreciate the extra exercise.
Tarkenton was a pain in the He'd gamble, he'd run anywhere. I mean, he'd run up in the stands if he had to. He's one man that we tried desperately to end his career. We tried, and I must say that in this day and age, we tried desperately to get rid of him. Because on a hot day in the Coliseum chasing Fran Tarkenton, it was not what you wanted to do.
I always hated Tarkenton. I really did. I mean, that little wimp would run around out there for hours and hours and hours, and we had to chase him wherever he went. Sometimes he'd run 40 yards back and forth and up and down the field, and at the end of a game against Tarkenton, your tongue was right on the ground.
While defenders were lapping up the turf, head coach Norm Van Brocklin was busy licking his wounds. Van Brocklin was from the old school, and he suffered each time Tarkenton turned a carefully calculated drive into a kindergarten recess. The Dutchman's frustration eventually turned to resentment, and Tarkenton and his schoolyard antics were sent to another playground.
They fell out in 1967, and it was inevitable. Dutch had a huge ego, so did Tarkenton. Tarkenton wouldn't take his crap anymore. He challenged him on a plane a couple times, Dutch did. Accused him of playing for himself rather than the team. That was a bad accusation. It really didn't make any sense. So Tarkenton said, well, goodbye.
Traded to the Giants, number 10 quickly found the accommodations in New York to be far worse than Van Brocklin's doghouse.
When I went to that team, it was the worst football team I've ever seen. It was pathetic. It was just absolutely pathetic. I've never seen a team with so little talent.
Despite the lack of talent, Tarkenton helped the Giants become winners by doing what he did best. Fran hauled New York up from last place to a level of respectability. However, after 5 seasons, Tarkenton's towing services were sent back to the Vikings. In Minnesota, the trend-setting Tarkenton broke another of pro football's commandments. thou shalt only control the ball on the ground. The sinning signal caller became the first quarterback to use the short pass the way other teams used the run.
I was a strategist. I knew where to throw the football. I wasn't blessed with all the physical skills in the world, but those things, understanding the game, knowing defenses, knowing offenses, being able to call plays, being able to read defenses, I felt that I could do that as well as anybody. I took great pride in that.
People always talk about his weak arm, but Fran Tarkenton was the master quarterback of all because he got you to do the things that he wanted you to do. He never played against his weaknesses. He always played against yours. If he couldn't throw the long ball, he'd throw the short ball to death until you got all the way up close and tried to stop the short ball, and then he'd throw the medium long ball, which in the end would get you nonetheless.
Tarkenton perfected a personal style of play that helped Minnesota become one of the game's most dominant teams. In 7 seasons, the Vikings won their division title 6 times, and the weak-armed quarterback, who people said would scramble his way into obscurity, had earned every honor a player could win, except one. 3 times, Tarkenton took his team to the Super Bowl, and 3 times they came away losers.
I guess it was just the ultimate disappointments. I cannot tell you the feeling of emptiness it gives you, of hopelessness it gives you. You feel like the world's against you, because they are. You see, they don't remember or look kindly at the second-place team in the Super Bowl. They look more kindly at people that never even made the Super Bowl than the ones who did and didn't win.
Fran Tarkenton never wore a championship crown, but his unyielding desire to succeed made him a king among quarterbacks.
I really always believe this, that the people that make it in the world are not necessarily the smartest or the strongest or the fastest or the prettiest. The people that really make it in the world, whether it be the football world, the entertainment world, the business world, are the ones that outlast the others, the ones that persevere. Yeah, they get knocked down, they get bloodied, they get disappointed, they get discouraged, but somehow they got the strength of character, the sense of presence to get back up and go again.
His career was a constant uphill struggle, but when he retired, he stood alone on the summit. Fran Tarkenton completed more passes for more yards and more touchdowns than any quarterback in history.
Fran Tarkenton was the best quarterback that's ever played professional football because you never achieve greatness without durability. Fran Tarkenton had, in addition to all the physical abilities, all the records he had durability. He played every week. In my mind, there's nobody played football at that position that was better than Fran Tarkenton ever.